Welcome everyone to Getting Started with Data Integration, FME Form 101. Today I'm joined by our three lovely presenters. I will pass things over to Kaylin first to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kaylin. I've been with the FME or Safe Storage just over 5 years, and I'm support for the FME Form product. Evie.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Evie LaPalme, and I am a technical support team lead on the Form product, and I've been here for just over 3 years. Donald?
I have been with Safe for about 1.5 years now, and I'm on the technical support team on the FME Form side as well.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Just briefly here, if you are newer to the Livestorm platform that we use for our webinars, a few tips and tricks here. So if you have any audio or video issues during the webinar, that handy help button on the bottom left has 4 simple steps to take. We also have the chat on the bottom right, which I see lots of people are using already, letting us know where you are tuning in from. You can also leave any comments during the webinar there. We have the questions tab as well. So please do drop any questions that you might have during the webinar in that questions tab. And we'll have some dedicated time at the end, and we might be able to get to some during the webinar as well. And then our reaction tab. So on the bottom middle, you'll see a react button, and we'd love to see any emoji reactions during the webinar. Let us know how you're feeling. It's really like fuel for us. It's nice to see how everyone's reacting to the content as we go here and engaging with it. Awesome, everyone's testing it out now. And then lastly, we will have a poll coming up in a few moments, so keep an eye on that polls tab. All right, so at this point, I will get our presenters to turn off their webcams just so we can save on some bandwidth for the remainder here. Awesome. And then lastly, before we get into our poll and agenda, if you do wish to download the slides, you can click the button on the top right of the PDF. Okay, so I'm going to take us through our agenda here briefly before we get into our poll and introduction. So to kick us off, Kaylin's going to be taking us through an intro to the power of FME Form and the why behind using it. And then from there, we are going to walk through the building blocks, truly, of FME, called the writers, readers, and transformers. From there, we're going to explore how FME gives you the freedom of many options to choose what's right for you, alongside some troubleshooting best practices and some insider tips and tricks from our expert presenters on the call here today. That'll be before we wrap up with next steps that you can take to get started yourself and resources to help you do so. And then at the very end, we're going to have that dedicated time for questions. Okay, so starting off here with our poll, we would love to know, how much time do you spend each week on data integration tasks at this point? So we'll give everyone a few moments to head on over to that polls tab. This will be good insight to know going into the rest of the webinar. Okay, it looks like we have most of the votes now. So if the team wants to head over and check out the results with me, we can take a look at those.
Yeah, it seems to be plenty for 1 to 5 hours.
Seems like most of you dabble with data integration, but maybe aren't full power users.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Lots of people using data integration tasks. Maybe we can help them.
Fingers crossed.
Awesome. All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time on that poll. All right, so from here, I will pass things over to Kaylin for our introduction.
All right, so I'm going to kind of walk us through the why of FME. So FME Form allows you to create end-to-end data integration workflows using a visual interface without requiring you to have a background in coding or scripting. In this day and age, not everyone knows how to code, and this can become a real barrier in organizations when they're faced with data challenges. With FME, you can design workflows visually. So you just drag and drop the data, connect it to one or hundreds of built-in transformers, and deliver it to where it needs to go. You can see your data come to life as you work with real-time data previews, as well as validate what's being written out or transformed. On top of this, you can save time by creating reusable workflow components like custom transformers, presets, and things like web and database connections. You can even hook everything into your favorite automation tool like FME Flow, so everything runs exactly how and when you need it to. It's really all about making your data work easier, faster, and smarter so you don't have to. But data integration isn't always easy. It can be tricky to build workflows that are easily repeated or scalable, especially when dealing with different data volumes and velocities like most of you are. And when something goes wrong, figuring out how to test or debug it isn't always straightforward or intuitive. Sometimes we don't really know where to look to get started. Plus, keeping workflow processes up to date can be kind of cumbersome, especially with so many tools, methods, and solutions available today. Sometimes it can feel like you're juggling, sometimes juggling even too much. But what if we told you could quit the circus? So with FME, data integration becomes effortless. And today, hopefully, we're going to show you how that can be done to give you the confidence to tackle any data-related challenge that comes your way. So let's actually start talking about the product itself. The FME platform manifests itself in three main products. So we have FME Form, which is what we're reviewing today. And this is where you're going to build and author your data integration workflows. These workflows are then published to FME Flow, where they can be automated, run on schedules, or run on event-based triggers. And then we have FME Realize, where you can actually bring your data to life in an augmented reality. So we started very focused on GIS, or geospatial data, and then over the years, we started to respond to our customers' needs. Now we support over 500 different data integrations in FME. So everything from geospatial data through to location intelligence and IT, our goal is to enable you to use your data when, where, and how it's needed, regardless of where it's sitting. So before kind of jumping into a demo, I wanted to get you familiar with the FME Form interface. So this background or kind of white screen that you're seeing where that orange object is going to be called our canvas. And this is actually where you're going to drag and drop your data and connect it to things like transformers. On the left-hand side, we have our navigator, and this is essentially a search and navigation tool for transformers, readers, writers, and a whole bunch of other workspace components that you're going to learn about today. On the bottom, we have our data preview window and log file overlaid on one another. So our data preview window is where you can visualize your changing data as it moves throughout the workspace. And then the log file is going to log everything that's happening in that workspace. So this is going to be like execution tracking, error detection, performance mentions if there are any. And then lastly, on the right-hand side, we have our record information window. And this is going to show you all values associated with a single data record. So now that we kind of understand the interface, we're actually going to show you how this all works. So I'm going to set the scene by reading out a scenario, and then we'll actually build out a solution in FME Form. The scenario. So a common task for a GIS department is to calculate the area of parks to determine what ground maintenance needs to be carried out for that year. Of course, this should not include land occupied by buildings. So in this demo, we're going to use FME Form to subtract those building footprints from the parks layer and then calculate the total park land area.
We're going to get started by dragging and dropping our Parks Map Info tab file. So you can notice that FME popped up a reader dialog box. FME is auto-populating the format based on this dataset extension, and we're being prompted for things like a coordinate system. If we had a coordinate system to apply to our data, we could go ahead and select it, but I'm going to leave this as blank. Before clicking OK, I want to bring your attention to the parameters. Each reader will have a unique set of parameters that will allow you to control how and what data is brought into FME Form. So, for example, precisely your map info tab reader will have different parameters than Excel. We're going to go ahead and leave everything as default and click OK to add our data to the canvas. This is our canvas, and this is where we build and author our data workflows in FME Form. If I click this down arrow, I can get a quick summary of all the attributes associated with this source feature type. I'm going to make sure I'm in data caching mode, and I'm going to do something called a partial run. A partial run will kick off our log file. Our log file is incrementally logging everything referenced or used in the workspace, so where features are being read from, written to, etc. So in this case, we have 80 park polygons being read, and we can view those 80 park polygons in our data preview window. I'm going to close this for now. You'll notice that even though we didn't supply a coordinate system, FME is intuitively laying our data over a background map. So let's bring in our building footprints to actually look at the issue we're trying to solve. Before clicking OK, we can take a look at the parameters and how they differed from the map info tab file. So here, if we maybe wanted to read floating point values as strings, we would be able to configure this. Again, we're going to leave everything as default and click OK to add our source feature type. Awesome. So let's go ahead and do a partial run to read in our building footprints. By using our visual preview window and doing a spatial overlay by holding the control button, we can actually see that we do have some buildings within the park polygons, and we're going to need to use a clipper transformer to remove those. So let's start building out our translation. Firstly, because we want to know the total park land area, we're going to type on our canvas and add a transformer. In this case, we're going to add an area calculator. This area calculator will calculate the area of the parks and store them in a new attribute called park land area. Next, we actually need to clip the buildings from our parks, so we're going to type and add a clipper transformer. In this case, our parks will be our candidate, and our building footprints will be our cookie cutter or clipper feature. If we needed to configure the parameters, we could double click and do so. In this case, we're going to leave everything as default. Lastly, because we want to know the total park land area, we're going to add one more area calculator to the outside port of the clipper transform. And here, we're going to store total park land area in total park land area. Lastly, to get our data out, we need to use something called a writer. So we can click this top button to add a writer, and we're going to write to file geodatabase. We're going to select an output location for our data. We're going to keep the feature class definition as automatic, so those two new area attributes in our workspace are getting picked up, and we'll click OK to add our writer. We'll rename this as park land area, and we can connect our stream. Because that file geodatabase we're writing to already exists, I'm going to want to open the writer parameters and make sure that we're overwriting our geodatabase each time. Now, we're going to rerun the entire workspace and write out our file geodatabase. So we'll notice that our log file tells us we have a successful translation, and we have 80 features written to our new file geodatabase.
Awesome. So we kind of just got a whirlwind tour of how to build and author workflows in FME Form. I think think Evie's going to take us through some readers and visualizing data now.
Yeah, thanks, Keelan. So to go through the core components of FME, readers, writers, and transformers, these are the building blocks for any workspace. To start, what exactly is a reader? So readers are the first step in your workspace. They bring in data into FME. Think of them as the entry point for your data, pulling from whatever source you're using. An important note, readers only have outputs since the data flows from left to right. And these are some examples on the right here of what readers look like on the canvas. So we also have an integrations matrix that I'll show in a moment. FME supports over 1,000 integrations, and that's not counting all the community-built integrations available on the FME hub. So I'll show you the integrations matrix right now. So you can see here, you can filter by platform, by the technology, and scroll through them. So if I click here on like CAD, for example, you can see that they've changed, or 3D. Yeah, so you can find this on our website, and you can see what you might need. This helps users quickly identify compatible formats for your use case. And after bringing in your data, it's useful to visualize and inspect it as you author your workspace. So how can you do that? That's by using Data Inspector or Data Preview in the canvas in Workbench. Once your data is in FME, the next step is often visualizing it. This helps you confirm what you're seeing is what you expect, and you can use Data Preview pane by clicking the green eye icon on any of the output ports, or you can expand it in Data Inspector to get a closer look at your data. I'll walk you through the elements of Data Preview here. There's Auto Inspect, Auto Loads, Data Previews when it's enabled. Display Control lets you toggle layers on and off. Table View is where you can see your attributes in a tabular format. Graphics View for spatial data visualization, and Record Information Window shows hidden details like lists or unexposed attributes, and I'll show you more detail in the next slide. And finally, the Data Inspector, which opens in a separate application that pops up for deeper exploration. So this is the elements of a record preview. Inside the record preview, you get a detailed insight into each feature. You'll see exposed attributes, which you can already see in the table view, unexposed attributes and lists, which can contain more complex or hidden data, and format attributes as well. And the geometry, including the type, like point, line, polygon, and the coordinate system it's using and other metadata. With that, I'll pass it off to Caleb for transformers.
Thanks, Evie. So once you've read your data in, you might need to transform it. So what is a transformer? Transformers in FME are like the heavy lifters of your data workflows. Each transformer will perform a specific task like filtering, joining, reformatting, geoprocessing, or cleaning. You can chain them together to create complex transformations or use them individually as needed. We've seen workspaces with single transformers, with hundreds of transformers, and sometimes workspaces don't actually have any transformers. So how do transformers work? Transformers are individual processing tools that take input data, apply a transformation, and then output the result. Every transformer will contain at least one parameter, which is the transformer name. But most transformers are actually heavily parameterized to give users more control over the transformations occurring to their data. So for example, a reprojector transformer will have different parameters to allow users to control the source and destination formats their data is being projected to. Some transformers also support group by, which will allow you to perform operations on sets of data that share a common attribute. So why do people actually use transformers? Really, this is kind of going to depend on your data and how you're planning to use it. Sometimes it's as simple as splitting a data set based on a status field. Sometimes they're used to map to lookup tables, to change or convert between geometries like 2D or 3D, or even vector to raster, or even generate new fields coming from API responses. If there's not a transformer already existing to do the job you need it to, you can create your own custom transformers. We don't actually review custom transformers in this webinar, but we'll share out some resources at the end. With that, Donald's going to tell you how to rate your data.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. So the final building block on FME are the riders. So what is a rider? A rider in FME is what we use to tell the workspace where your data should go and in what format. So whether you're writing it to Excel, GeoJSON, or something else, the rider handles that part. Each format has its own set of options. For example, with Excel, you can choose the sheet name, and with GIS formats, you might set things like spatial references. FME gives you the tools you need based on whatever format you pick. So what does the rider actually do in FME? Well, it handles a few key things. First, it decides what format you're writing to. So for example, Excel, shapefiles, AutoCAD files, you name it. Second, it sets where that output goes, whether that's a file path or to a database connection. Thirdly, it lets you define what the structure of that output should look like. Things like field names, geometry types, coordinate systems, and so on. And finally, it manages what happens to the data when it gets there. Whether you're adding new records, updating existing ones, or even deleting records, it's all depending on the format and the user's preferences. And with that, you now have the building blocks of FME: readers, transformers, and riders. I'll pass it over to Evie now, who's going to walk us through FME options.
Thanks, Donald. Yeah, so let's move into how you can customize FME to fit your needs. FME options are the settings that help you tailor the FME experience for you. But where can you find FME options? In Windows, you can go to Utilities and find it there. And Mac OS, it's in Preferences. So the elements that I'll highlight today are Workbench, Translation, Appearance, Toolbar, Database Connections, Web Connections, and FME Packages. And this is what the first window looks like. So for Workbench, I want to highlight that you can set your save options, including turning autosave on or off, which is super useful. There's also data inspection settings, whether you want to auto launch Data Inspector if the data preview window is closed. And this is where you can find controls for AI Assist. You can enable it and configure workspace context to get smarter suggestions. I'll go into more detail on AI Assist a bit later. Translation. This tab is all about controlling how your workspace runs. The two key highlights here are log debug is super useful for troubleshooting, and selecting your preferred Python interpreter, especially important if you're using Python scripts in your workspace. Appearance tab is where you can completely change how FME looks. You can switch between light or dark mode, and you can even customize your color scheme as well. This is all to let you adjust your visual details to make FME easier on your eyes. And Toolbar is here so you can make the interface your own. You can add or remove icons, rearrange them, or simplify the toolbar to focus on what you use the most. It's all about creating a clean, efficient layout that works for you. And last but not least, database connections, web connections, and FME packages. Database connections, you can connect and authenticate with common databases or use a JDBC driver for others. Web connections, you can set this up to manage any of your web services and authenticate with them. You can even build custom OAuth 2.0 or token-based services by going to Manage Services. FME packages are where third-party tools and integrations live. You can manage these and check for updates to stay current. With that, I'll pass it back to Donald for troubleshooting.
So I remember one of the first workspaces I ever built. I had a simple goal: read in a CSV file and write it out as a shapefile. Sounds easy, but no matter what I did, it just didn't run. I spent way too long checking the transformers, rewriting the schema, even re-downloading the source file. Turns out I had accidentally added a typo in the output file path. So one wrong character and FME couldn't create the file. It was a classic case of it's always the small things. The takeaway for me was don't panic when something doesn't work. There are plenty of steps we can take to troubleshoot and find the root of the problem. One thing I really love about FME is how user-friendly it is. No matter if you're totally new or have been using it for years, there's a ton of helpful resources built right in. You've got access to FME help, which includes all the documentations, explanations of terminology, and training materials you might need. So you're never really on your own. The translation log is honestly one of the most important tools in FME Form. Think of it like your workspace's report card. It shows you everything that happened while your data was being processed. Every time you hit run, FME generates this log, and it's super helpful for figuring out what went right and what didn't. If you see an error in the log, it means something went wrong, like maybe FME couldn't write to the output file. That might just be a permissions issue, but if it can't complete that step, it stops the whole process. So whenever things go sideways, the log is the first place you should check. If you run into an error or something that doesn't look right in your output, the first place to check is the log window. It's your best friend when it comes to figuring out what went wrong. Even if the translation says it was successful, you might still see a message like translation was successful with X amount of warnings, which means things mostly worked, but something still needs your attention. So don't ignore the warnings. One thing to know is that FME processes data feature by feature, not transformer by transformer. So in the log, it might not look like it's following your workspace in the exact order, unless you're using a group-based transformer that handles all features at once. Also, those timestamps in the log can be super helpful. They show how long different steps took, which can give you clues about performance issues. Like if reading from a database is taking ages, maybe it just needs better indexing. It's always helpful to have a bit of a game plan when it comes to troubleshooting. Pretty much everyone runs into issues with their FME workspaces at some point. It doesn't matter if you're brand new or if you've been using it for years. Having a few go-to steps can really help you break the problem down and figure out what's going on. And even if you end up needing help from support, following these steps will make it easier and faster to get a solution. When something goes wrong in the workspace, the first thing to do is try to reproduce the issue. What exactly were you doing when the problem showed up? Sometimes it's just running the workspace. Other times it's something a bit more specific, like after you add a few transformers. Next, you want to narrow things down. So you can ask yourself, am I reading data? Am I writing the data or doing something in between? Try and isolate where the issue might be. And finally, don't be afraid to test small changes, tweaking one thing at a time. So for example, you could be reading a small chunk of your data. It can help you figure out if it's one particular feature or step that's causing the problem. Once you've made a change, take a look at the outcome. Did it fix the issue or at least give you a clue about what's going on? If changing one thing makes a difference, that's a great sign you're getting close to the root of the problem. It could be something like a specific feature in your data, a geometry type that FME doesn't like, a format setting that's off, or just even a mismatch in coordinate systems. It can be very simple things. And sometimes the issue only happens on one machine. In that case, generating a system information file can help compare setups and spot what's different between computers. Sometimes the issue isn't actually with FME itself. It might be something external. So it's a good idea to go straight to the source and test things outside of FME. For example, if FME can't read from an Esri geodatabase, try opening that same data directly in ArcGIS to make sure it's not a data or permissions issue. And if you're still stuck, don't worry, just reach out to Safe Software Support. Our team is awesome and super quick to help. Just make sure to include your workspace, log files, and anything else that might help us get to the bottom of it faster. Safe Software has tons of resources to help you out when you're troubleshooting or even just learning the ropes for new beginners. The FME knowledge base is full of helpful guides, like how to recover your FME account, debug common issues, and even how to submit a support case. Then there's the FME community, a great place to ask questions, share ideas, and connect with other users all over the world. When I first started learning how to use FME Form, I often found myself going back to the community time and time again. There are so many regular community users who love sharing their wealth of knowledge and are so enthusiastic about FME. I couldn't recommend it enough. If you need one-on-one help, you can head over to the support center and submit a ticket. Our team of experts will jump in and help troubleshoot with you. And you can also check out the FME Hub, which is full of custom transformers, templates, and other content shared by users, and they're all totally free. Also, don't forget about the FME Academy, our accelerator sessions, our blogs, and our webinars. They're all great for learning and getting more confident with the platform. Up next, we're going to talk about some helpful tips and tricks, so I'll hand us back over to Kaylin to kick us off.
So yeah, we're going to review some tips and tricks to help you kind of stay organized when either getting started or developing new workspaces. So naming conventions. Maybe another way of saying this is maybe take the time to name it like you mean it. So developing naming conventions for yourself or your organization is a great way to stay organized and consistent. So not only does this improve the shareability of workspaces by making them easier to interpret, but it actually makes things more discoverable too. So it makes it easier to search, spot, and grab files that you need or workspaces you need without digging into your file share system. And then also this is good for long-term maintenance. So keeping identifiers in your project names, in your workspace or transformer names like projects or dates can help you kind of keep track of things.
Thanks, Kaylin. Yeah, I'll talk a bit about AI Assist. This is one of the features that I wanted to highlight as my tip. It is the newly announced for 25.1. You can now chat naturally with AI Assist right inside the platform. It's gone beyond just generating regex, Python, or SQL. Now you can ask for the best transformer for your task, get help on how to use a specific transformer or feature, summarize and better understand an existing workspace, and even add it as an annotation or workspace description. Or if you're stuck and don't know where to start, you can simply describe your process and use plain language and let AI Assist guide you. If you want to learn more, information is available on our AI Assist FAQ on our website there. We'll put the link in the chat.
Yeah, for me, I want to highlight the bookmarks and annotations. These are super handy when organizing your workspace. You can group related transformers together, color code them, collapse or expand bookmarks as you're building your workflow to keep things tidy. They're also great for leaving notes, either for yourself when you come back to the workspace or later for somebody else who might be maintaining it. A well-organized workspace with clear bookmarks and annotations is not only easier to read, but also much easier to debug and update in the future. If you're not sure how to get started with FME Form, a great place to begin is the examples gallery. You can find it right from the start menu. The gallery includes pre-built workspaces that have been shared either by other FME users or by Safe Software ourselves. These examples cover a wide range of use cases and are a great way to explore how different transformers work together without having to start from scratch. It definitely helped me when I started with FME. So this leads us to our conclusion of our webinar. We'll go through a few slides here reviewing what we have learned. So why choose FME Form? Honestly, it's just really easy to get into. The interface is clean and approachable, so even if you're brand new, it doesn't feel overwhelming. You can jump in and start working with your data right away, no coding required. The main building blocks, readers, writers, and transformers, make it super simple to pull in your data, transform it however you need, and send it wherever it needs to go. Whether you're a total beginner or more advanced, it scales with you. You can also make FME your own. Under FME options, you can tweak how things work, whether it's setting default behaviors, customizing how data is handled, or even just changing the look and feel to suit your workflow. It's flexible, and that's a big plus. And of course, we've talked about troubleshooting. FME gives you all the tools to solve the problems when they pop up, like checking the log, testing changes, and narrowing things down. And if you need backup, Safe Software has your back with tons of resources. The Knowledge Base Support Center and the FME community are all there to help you out. So whether you're just getting started or growing your data skills, FME Form makes it easy, powerful, and fun to work with data. As you can see, Safe Software is growing like crazy, and we've built an awesome global community along the way. We've been at this for over 30 years, and now we work with more than 25,000 organizations across 128 countries. Our community has over 30,000 users, and it just keeps getting bigger. Safe Software is all about all data and AI. With FME, we support over 500 different data types, and that number keeps growing. Whether you're growing with geospatial data, local intelligence, IT systems, or something totally custom, our goal is to help you get your data where it needs to be, when you need it, and in the format you want. FME is the only platform out there that truly lets you work with any kind of data and connect it to any kind of AI. It's all about putting you in control and making your data actually work for you. So before we wrap up, just here are a few next steps to keep your FME journey going. First, just give it a try. Build a small workflow in FME Form. Doesn't have to be fancy. Just reading a file and writing it somewhere else is a great way to get a feel for the software itself and how things work. This definitely helped me throughout my journey. Next, play around with custom transformers and test previews. This is where FME starts to get really fun, and you can kind of start experimenting with your own ideas. If you haven't already, check out our free FME Form Basics training. It's a great way to build up your confidence and pick up some solid hands-on experience. And most importantly, don't go it alone. Whether you've got questions or just want to learn from others, our support team and the FME community are always here to help. You can always reach us at info@safe.com. And that's a wrap on our webinar, Getting Started with Data Integration, FME Form 101. So a huge thank you for everybody joining us today. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. I'm going to hand it back over to Elizabeth now, who will walk you through some great resources to keep that momentum going.
Awesome. Thanks, Donald. Yeah, not quite a wrap. We still have some resources to go through here and live questions. So we hope you can stick around for that. Just a reminder, in a couple minutes, we will have some time dedicated for questions. So if you do have anything top of mind from the webinar that you're curious about, just a reminder to get that into our questions tab. But before we get to that, I know Donald has gone over our amazing resources, but I also did want to highlight something quite unique about our product and our company is that we do offer free instructor-led training over at our FME Academy. So definitely take full advantage of that, academy.safe.com. It's a fantastic place to get started. And then we also have, as Donald mentioned, our webinars. We have hundreds of webinars available on demand. So you're welcome to browse through that gallery and search by whatever topic you might be looking to learn more about in FME. And our community badge code. So if you are already a member of our community, maybe you just signed up today even, we do have a bit of a fun time collecting badge codes. And in one way is through our webinars as a thank you for joining us. So I will drop that code in the chat with the link there to redeem that. And then we're also running a really fun bingo contest that we started this month. So if you'd like to partake or even just check it out, I did just drop the link to that in the chat as well. All right, and with that, I will prompt our presenters if they want to join me on stage with their webcams, and we can take a look over the questions tab together. And maybe as our team is doing that, I'll also mention quickly that if you do have any questions after the webinar, no worries, of course, do feel free to reach out to us as well, info@safe.com. But yeah, if there was any questions that we wanted to get started with team.
Yeah, I'll just mention that question that Bill brought up about setting a variable. I think Galen answered that great. I was also going to mention user parameters. Another one could be setting, there is a variable setter transformer as well. That might be what you're looking for as well. But I think user parameters are great because you can ask the user what they want as well. And then I'll quickly just answer to FME Form is a desktop app, and there are no current plans for a web version of FME Form. Although I think we have considered it in the past, but yeah, as of right now, it will remain a desktop application. And okay, there's another question too that just came in. Is there an option to set the program to another language? And yes, we actually just released a few languages this past official release. So I would check that out. Do you remember what languages they were? It was French and German?
So German, Hindi, French, Dutch, it looks
Yes.
like.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think more are coming as well, so look out for that.
Lots of interest in that. That's awesome. Looks like.
And then there's a question in the chat too. Is FME Form Mac OS friendly? And yes, I use FME on a Mac right now, and it's great. You just might not have certain formats available that are OS dependent, such as Esri, but everything else should work fine.
Great.
Not seeing any more questions. FME Form is not different than FME Workbench. So FME Workbench used to be called FME Workbench. It's now called FME.
Well,
it's the same
it used to be
thing.
called FME Desktop, and I guess the difference is FME Form is actually 3 different applications. One of them is Workbench, another is Data Inspector, and then the other is to run that. You can run that automatically without opening Workbench at all. So so Form is just the collective of the desktop.
Quick translator.
Quick translator, yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Okay.
And one more just came in. Bill usually has FME base name already on. Is this a way to have this already set? And this is set on your reader. So as long as you have that set, yeah. Keelan.
I think you might have to manually expose it depending on the format. I think
Yeah, I think it's
it's a
format.
file format. Yeah, format based.
I think it's format specific, but yeah, you could also use, we didn't go over feature readers, but that could also be a solution here, I think.
Awesome.
Okay, a few more questions just came in. I'll just keep going.
Great.
yeah, how can you use AI to help you learn FME? And I would definitely use AI Assist within the product because that is using our documentation. So it's being updated regularly and it has the most up-to-date information. If you use any of the other AI services, I would use it for ideas, but maybe not trust it completely.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Last question here is, do we provide trial licenses? And I would contact sales. Sales at safe.com will answer all of your licensing queries, including trials, or if you wanted a quote or like a proof of concept or demo, we can always answer any of those questions.
Awesome. And there is a question in the chat as well. I noticed someone asking about how can we know the list of professional certification holders. Correct me if I'm wrong, but does the community not like show a badge when someone posts if they're certified? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, you do get a badge when you get a certification. The wall of fame has been taken down since the migration to our new community, but they are working on making a new one. So the complete list of everyone with that isn't available, but you do get a badge.
Cool. Awesome.
And then, yeah, one more question. If you're using data interoperability in ArcGIS Pro, yes, you are stuck with whatever Esri version, whatever version of ArcGIS Pro you have is locked to that version of FME. So the benefit of going with us instead of with data interoperability is that you get to update whenever you want.
Yeah, I think data interop is a full version behind us usually.
All right. Okay, I think I'm just doing a final scan here. It looks like we've gotten to all the questions. Does anyone see any others? Anyone on the team? No? Okay. Yeah, and I will note as well, I'll leave things running a few minutes longer past after we've wrapped up. So if you do have anything that comes to mind, feel free to still drop it in the questions tab and we'll keep an eye out. And then once again, of course, if you do have any questions that come up after, info@safe.com, we're happy to help out as well. Yeah, but with that, I want to extend a huge thank you to our whole audience for joining us today. We hope you got a lot of value out of today's webinar. If you do have a brief moment to fill out our webinar survey, we really appreciate any feedback. It helps us continue to improve our webinar program. And also, huge thank you to Evie, Kaylin, and Donald for preparing and presenting today's content. Really appreciate all your time. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. We hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks.